friends at Tivoli Brewing Company and the Department of Communication Arts and Sciences at MSU Denver, this is Unfiltered. And here are your hosts, Jay Schrader and Dr. Samuel J.
How's the sound? How's my sound?
You're good.
You're fine, yeah.
You can actually kind of go. It's a little bit better that way.
This
yeah,
way.
You're fine. Just don't rub your beard on it as much.
I don't have a beard.
You're okay.
This beard
I have
is
an issue with
significantly
him
shorter than it was 12 hours ago.
Well, let's do our cheers and let's get this thing up and running.
Cheers.
All right, Jay, we're at Tivoli today. We're back at home base.
Yes. This is the main office.
Which means that we're interviewing somebody who doesn't own a brewery, but it's kind of a big deal. Owns a lot of breweries? No, has her hands.
I don't own any breweries, but I work for all breweries.
You work for all breweries.
There you go.
Would you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Shawnee Adelson. I'm the executive director of the Colorado Brewers Guild.
So, for folks who don't know, what is the Colorado Brewers Guild?
We are a non-profit trade association, so that means it's membership-based, so we're made up of craft breweries around the state, and our mission is to promote and protect Colorado craft beer. So we protect by doing advocacy at the state capitol and making sure the laws are favorable for craft brewers, making sure that they're interpreted the same way we would interpret them, and then we promote them through beer festivals and social media and various different avenues, including doing interviews with media.
So I guess the consumer side of things, we would know the Brewers Guild, not just by I've seen the sign places, right? But you're hosting all of the big events, I'm sure. So aside from GABF, which we'll get into, what are the other big Brewers Guild?
So we do Collaboration Fest is probably one of the biggest ones that people know. And then we also do other events around the state. Our oldest event is the Colorado Brewers Rendezvous, which is in Salida.
We keep hearing a lot of good things about that one.
It's super fun. It's one of our brewers' favorite beer festivals. Fills up really quickly. And it's always the second Saturday in July in Salida. So you guys should get that on your calendar.
I was going to say.
So like with a festival like that, what are you doing during the festival? I'm sure the lead up to it's a lot of planning, but
during the festival, I'm usually hanging out with brewers.
Okay, I was going to say, so that's fun for you.
Sounds like a hard job today.
Such a hard job. No, a lot of it's like crisis management. Something happens, I'm there to help make sure that an EMT is called, or a brewer runs out of beer, or their CO2 isn't working. I'm trying to help them find different things. During the day, we're helping set up, and then we have a booth where we sell our merchandise. So I'm there often slinging merchandise and telling craft beer lovers about what the Guild does.
So you do it all?
I do it all.
Oh my God. Okay, so do you have a question? Are we good? This is usually...
Yeah, I have 1,000 questions. Okay. That's the point, right?
Do you have one now? Because I was going to get into origin stories. So
actually, I was going to say, this is a very polished job description, and you're explaining it to us in pretty good detail. Obviously, you know what you do, and you probably do it pretty well, but as Sam was saying, origin stories, where did this come from? How did you get into this?
How did I get into this job?
This role, yeah. We did a bare minimum of research on you. I think I know the short answer, but...
So before we started recording, Sam was asking me about this, but I'll go into a little more detail. I moved back to Colorado in 2008 to go to grad school, and I started noticing breweries opening up and spending time at breweries and getting more and more involved with them. And then I got involved in the event side of things and going to beer festivals and volunteering at beer festivals. And I started putting on my own tastings for my friends, where I would do blind tastings. So I would choose a style of beer, and then we would do blind tastings with about 20 of us.
Okay.
And I invited Steve Karowski, who at the time was working for the Colorado Brewers Guild. He's the operations and marketing director for, I think, 7 or 9 years with the Guild. And I bugged him and said I wanted a job. And he said, I happen to be hiring. Do you want to apply?
So this was after you You came back. Had you started grad school then, or?
I had. So I had already graduated grad school.
Okay.
Yep.
Right.
So this was that when I met him, it was 2015.
Okay.
I want to say.
DU had really shitty beer at all of their events then. When you were in school there, like there was no good beer.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really go to the events, so.
It wasn't even a good brewery over there, really.
There wasn't.
Vermontra was.
They weren't even open. So I went to grad school 2008, 2009, 2010.
Okay.
And
so yeah, where would you go for good? Before we kind of spread out from the DU area,
Campus Lounge.
What was the it was Campus Lounge?
The stadium.
Yeah, exactly. Where you can get a $6 Lagunitas still, right?
Yeah.
But what was there any good beer around there? Because I can't remember when I was in school.
I was actually really into Belgian beers at the time, and you couldn't find many Belgian beers, and so I got into home brewing. So I started home brewing in 2008 and making solely Belgian beers because that's one, easiest to do when you're home brewing without temperature control, and two, it was hard to find them, and that was the style I really liked.
So what did the setup look like? Like, was it in your closet or?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you had it.
It was not professional at all.
I mean, you got to save some costs with that DU.
I mean, it was
education.
like boiling on the stove at home. That's how I started.
I think it's amazing to talk to a home brewer that managed to go a completely different direction than becoming a brewer or starting their own brewery. I mean,
Did you think about it?
Briefly, but my experience with homebrewing was that I wasn't great at it. I could do it, but I thought I'll leave it to the professionals, and they can make better beer than I can.
That's my attitude about homebrewing.
Do you feel like some breweries open up not knowing they're shitty breweries?
Oh, wow. She works for the brewery.
She doesn't
I
have to
work
name
for
any
all
names.
of the breweries, but I would say that there is a learning curve in terms of going from a small batch system into commercial brewing, and it's not just that. It's also a learning curve, even if you've been a seasoned brewer, going on to a new system, learning how the system works. Yeah. And people are always trying to figure out those kinks at the beginning.
Yeah. So we had Ted Einen on last week, so the guy from Meyer Skis, and he's the owner of Meyer Skis, and we were talking about craft beer in Colorado, skiing and all that stuff, the mountain towns. Knowing that you're from Telluride, how important was growing up there to your love of beer?
Yeah, I would say it's pretty instrumental in the sense that Telluride is a super small town. There's no chains there, so there's not even a McDonald's or anything in that town. It's very focused on local businesses and supporting local businesses, and so I think that was instilled in me in a young age. My mom owned her own business, and so did my dad.
Okay.
And then Telluride is also a big festival town, and craft beer goes well with festivals. So my entire childhood, I remember the Kodo booth, which is the local radio station, their booth at Bluegrass Festival. Always had either Boulder beer or New Belgium. It's now Avery, but not growing up there anymore. But I remember working there and helping out and pouring beer, and it's a big part of that. Was
Telluride Brewing Co. around when you were there?
No, they were not.
Okay.
They opened up after I left, but I'm good friends with those guys now. Obviously, I go back and hang out with them.
What was that spot before it was a brewery?
Oh, I mean, Lawson Hill, where they're located, wasn't anything when I was growing up.
Okay.
That's a newer development. I don't know what was in their actual facility, but it was not created to be a brewery.
Yeah. I've only been in there once, but that was kind of my feeling too. It didn't feel like, a big production facility, what have you. Okay. So were you drinking beer when you went out to Whitman then, when you went to Washington, knowing that kind of Washington has beer as well?
Yeah, Washington has beer. We drank a lot of Deschutes when I was out there. Yeah. And obviously as a poor college kid, I also drank cheap beer.
So like
a lot of Olympia.
A lot of Olympia. And Kokanee.
Kokanee, yeah. I saw one of those in the fridge the other day.
Yeah.
What is that? I've never even heard of it.
It's like a Pacific Northwest.
Who makes it?
Bush Light, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how to describe it otherwise.
And there's like a little Yeti or Sasquatch.
Oh,
on
I
the
thought
mountain.
there's I've never seen that.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen the mountain, but
never the little guy.
there was one random bottle of Kokanee in the fridge for Thanksgiving. At my father-in-law's, yeah.
What the hell?
And it was there one day and it was gone the next, and he did not own up to it for like 2 days because I was excited about drinking it, and it disappeared.
It disappeared. Okay, so that's what you were drinking. Did you have a craft beer bar that you could get to when you were at Whitman?
There was a local brew pub.
Okay.
I would say most people at that time would agree that beer wasn't great.
Yeah.
But there was actually a little bar there called The Green. I think it's called The Green Lantern officially, but everybody called it The Green. And we would go there and drink craft beer. Me not knowing too much about beer, we loved our Hefeweizens, so I drank a lot of whatever they had that was similar to that.
Gotcha. So if you go to Whitman and then DU, you must be smart as fuck.
I was going to say, there's a lot of brains at this table, and they're not mine.
Cool. What did you study at Whitman?
I was an econ major.
And what's your grad program in?
International development.
Whoa.
So not anything similar to what I'm doing right now.
Did you ever, in grad school, think you were going to be going and doing international relations type stuff? Or was,
Yeah, that was the part of econ that I loved was international development and international work. And I spent 6 months in South America in between college and grad school. That wasn't the only thing I did, but I did that for a while. I worked in Ecuador for 3 months in a school there and thought that's what I wanted to do. And then got out of grad school and I decided I didn't want to go to another country and tell people how to live their lives.
That makes sense.
And that I would rather make my community a better place.
That's good.
Wow.
How has that education kind of influenced your approach to leadership?
I think one of the biggest things, and it goes back to what I just said, is like I want to help make my community a better place, but it's also giving people the tools to be able to grow their business or their community better. And so that's what the Guild's really here to do, is to provide that. We're here to provide resources and education and support our members, but ultimately I always say the Guild is their Guild and I work on behalf of them.
It's only as good as what you put into it, right?
Exactly.
That's a pretty standard trade group kind of a thing. You're only going to get as much out of the Guild as you put into it,
Makes
Sam
sense.
Brewer.
That's good.
What I'm hearing though is, and reading up on Shawnee's background a little bit, Sam, and the pedigree from the school side of things, I was expecting, obviously we have a smart person here, I was expecting a smart kind of cutthroat business person that randomly fell into beer. What I'm getting though is you actually have been passionate about beer for quite a long time, and this is a good marriage of your talent and your passion, and maybe not to say that you're not necessarily cutthroat, but I'm actually a little surprised. A lot of trade groups, a lot of nonprofits, a lot of industry-focused organizations like the Brewers Guild, in my experience, tend to be run by career nonprofit professionals, not one or two people that are passionate. I mean, you have to be passionate about what you do in nonprofit work, but it strikes me as an important factor of you moving into your position, because you've only recently moved into your role as director. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I was going to bring that up. So I started as a part-time contractor.
Okay.
Helping with membership and helping with events. So I started in a very different role than I am right now, and that's where that passion came in. Is I just wanted to help out, and I wanted to work and support the Guild in a different capacity than I am now. I've slowly moved from that position to a full-time membership director, to deputy director, to now executive director. So over 4 years, I've transitioned from that part-time contractor up to full-time executive director.
It's pretty impressive.
Pretty hot shit here.
No shit. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, and that's, so coming from a sales background personally and knowing what membership sales really is, probably what that was when you first got started, you're obviously pretty damn good at what you do.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, sales is actually, I tell people I work in sales. I mean, at least membership is sales. I mean, you're trying to show value every single day, regardless of if they've already joined or not, because if you're not showing them value every day, then they're not going to renew.
Right.
And so it is all about showing that value, continuing to show that value. And but it's also, this industry is so much about people. and building relationships, and that personality piece of it is very different than just buy this and I'll never talk to you again. It's building trust and community and those relationships.
There's two kinds of sales, right? There's transactional sales, and then there's relationship, long-term relationships.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a totally different kind of sales. And I can't imagine something like the Guild. You're looking for, hey, the check cleared, they're getting their newsletter, I've done my job. I mean, you have to continue to focus on your new clients or your long-term clients and make sure that, as you said, they're getting something out of that every day. So
Totally. Yep, that's a big part of what we do is continuing to build those relationships, and it's not just about the money, but I think also it makes it easier to do my job because I believe in it and I believe in what all of our members are doing and supporting them. So it makes it a lot more natural than trying to sell something that you don't care about.
So knowing that, I guess, if we walk back a couple of years to when you were selling the memberships, do you have to really sell that membership, or if somebody has starting up a new brewery, is it just expected that you kind of join the Guild? Down goes Schrader.
I would say that it's a mix. Some of our members, it takes more conversations and meetings, and some just join because that's what you do. It's a mix of that, definitely. And to be honest, I still do that. So I've never stopped doing membership. And we just hired somebody. Her first day was today. She'll be helping me with membership. But I've never stopped doing membership since I started at the Guild. So I'll continue to work on it.
What are they expecting when they join it? Like, what are you hearing, or what did you hear? What does a new brewer want for their buck, right? Like,
it all depends on what they're focusing on.
Okay.
So one of the things I mentioned early on is our advocacy effort. So for some of our members, that's really important that we're at the state capitol making sure that the laws are favorable for them, but that also makes it so that they don't have to have their own lobbyist. Like we are there. We're their voice, and having us, one person represent them is stronger than having multiple voices at the Capitol.
Okay. That makes total sense.
So that's a big piece of it. Some people just want to attend our events and pour beer at our events because they're fun.
Okay.
And some people want education. They want more information, and they also want a resource to go to. So I get questions almost daily on, can I do this? Can I not do this? Will the LED be upset if I do it this way instead of this way? Those kinds of things. And we're there to give them direction. And if I can't give them direction, then I know where to.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
let me ask this, Shawnee. What, if anything, sets the Brewers Guild apart from the Craft Brewers Association, and where is there overlap? Where do you tend to bridge a gap in what they offer or how they serve? And I mean, Are you targeting the same types of brewers? And
so that's a really good question. And one thing that I always tell people is that so the Brewers Association is our national counterpart.
Okay.
So they do the exact same thing we do on the national level. So they are working on federal legislation, and they'll never work on state level legislation.
Okay.
Like they'll give us resources if we need them at the state level, but they never really do that at the state level. They put on Great American Beer Festival that attracts breweries from all across the country. We put on Collaboration Fest and the Rendezvous, which is Colorado specific.
Okay.
So we work closely with them actually, and we don't compete. We support each other. They have a guild manager, so she's our point of contact, and so I can call her and ask her, hey, a member has this question about something that I don't know about at the BA.
Yeah.
Can you direct them to the right person? And she also is there to support us in various different ways. We gather multiple times a year with all the other state guilds to talk about what's going on across the country so we can have an idea of where everything stands.
so is there one of you and one of your guild in all 50 states?
All 50 states has a guild. I believe 48 of them have a paid employees.
I was going to say.
It's close, but not, I don't think
That's a lot more than I would think.
Yeah,
That's
actually,
a lot.
I was not
Wow.
expecting her to say 50 states.
Yep, and even DC has their own.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
And then there are a decent number of regional guilds.
Okay.
So California, for being such a large state, has a few regional guilds.
Okay. That would make sense. So who's comparable to the size of Colorado in terms of guild size and membership?
I turn to New York a lot.
Really?
Is similar in our size. Oregon as well, and Washington. Yeah, I think that those it depends on the state and how they're structured, how membership works, and everything like that. But those are some of the counterparts that I look to. Okay. New York has, I think, 3.5 or 4 employees now.
Wow.
So that's comparable.
And you're at how many?
2.5.
Really?
Yeah.
So it's just that's why you're in a okay.
That's why she's worried about. That's why she's worried about new hire 0.5 because poor girl's on her first day and Shawnee's like, so I gotta go have beers. See ya.
We need to send more interns to you. Apparently.
Yeah, no kidding.
We gotta get. Okay, so I guess before we get into the hard questions, the expert question.
We're not happy unless you leave here crying.
Yes,
so.
yeah, that's how. Yeah, I mean, ask Dave Bergen. Was he just bald all the way? You know, the end.
I can just picture him crying.
And his beard. Yeah,
right.
Yes.
You know that Dave Bergen's on our board of directors.
I know. Yeah,
we may have done, like I said, a little bit of research.
Yeah, we knew. So outside of Colorado, what is your favorite craft beer? Since you can't name a favorite here, right?
Hard hitting, Sam.
It's like a parent naming their favorite child. You can't do it, even though we all know.
I can do it.
And
do it on a regular basis.
Yeah, exactly.
I know. I do. So when people ask me my favorite beer, my favorite brewery, I tell them they're all my children.
Yep.
So you just use my quote.
Nailed it.
But I would say outside of Colorado, I started drinking craft beer before it was even called craft beer. I mean, it was microbreweries, and California was pretty far advanced in that regard, and so I had a lot of exposure to California breweries, Stone specifically, and Ale House. AleSmith.
AleSmith, I knew.
And then I mean, those two are pretty instrumental, and their West Coast IPAs were a big deal for me.
Would you have said Lagunitas if their beer didn't taste like garbage?
They weren't as big of a deal to me, actually. One of my closest friends lives right near there, so I went there a decent amount. But before that, it really, Stone was a big one for me, and I still like Tropic of Thunder.
Yeah. Wait. So you like Belgian beers, but you were obviously drinking a lot of West Coast IPAs. So, I mean, you'll drink in the Helles. You brought up the Helles. Or, I mean, the Hefeweizen.
No, So I'm drinking the Helles.
You're not particular. You're not.
Not particular, but I would say that I generally drink light-colored beers.
Yeah. Same here.
Give me an IBU number.
Oh, I am
I'm just
all
kidding.
across
Don't do
the
it.
board.
Don't do it.
I would say my general style of choice would be a pale ale.
Okay.
But like a hoppy pale ale.
So when Conrad won that GABF award, you were like, that fucking beer
that
deserves
beer's
it.
good.
Yeah, exactly. That is a good beer.
Yeah, no, I like hoppy pale ales. I like the lower ABV generally.
Yeah.
Beers, but that have flavor.
Yeah, you did. You were going to order a brewed IPA, which I'm wondering about that style, because I like a good brute, but it really hasn't taken off. Not just in Colorado, it hasn't taken off across the country.
It didn't jump the way we thought it would a year ago.
Well, the juicies and the hazies have just kind of overpowered everything.
Yep. I mean, we're drinking a juicy right now. It's not hazy, though.
No, it's definitely not a hazy. It's just a juicy.
She's quizzing you now.
Well, no, I got to...
you got to look at it?
No. What did Nate gave me the lesson on Friday night. I was over here for a faculty thing. The juicy and the hazy. I think I understand the difference, right? Like a hazy's harder to can and distribute. Is that correct? Because it just doesn't package well.
It's less shelf stable.
Yeah.
Generally, although breweries do it, but it's generally less shelf stable.
All right, let's now continue to kind of prod your brain.
Okay.
Now that we've thrown you a watermelon.
Yeah, the old softball question. What are you seeing for trends now? Is anything shocking you? Are you shocked by the hazy craze?
Yes and no. I mean, yes, because I think that brewers have. When I started homebrewing, your goal was to make your beer clear.
Yeah.
And it was that was the thing, is like, how clear can your beer be? And that meant that you did a good job.
Yeah.
So yes, in the sense of the clarity and how it looks, but I would say no in the sense of brewers are trying to branch out and attract people that may not have thought that they liked craft beer.
Makes sense.
And that hazy, juicy really attracts people that didn't think that they liked that bitterness or that traditional like yellow fizzy beer.
Yeah.
And it has more of a fruitiness to it. It's much more approachable and it's softer. And so I can see where there's a trend towards that. That's similar to like the pastry stouts where it's sweeter. It has a different type of flavor that's unique. And so I would say yes and no in the sense that brewers latch on to it, but
So they do latch onto it? Are they committed to it, or is it the consumer is driving that trend?
different brewers would answer differently,
Yeah,
but
that's
I
what we
would say
get
it's
too,
a
yeah.
huge consumer-driven trend.
Yeah.
Now, I hear nowadays if a brewer doesn't have a hazy or a juicy on, that people ask for it, and so they feel obligated to have one.
I can't say much since they pay me, but Nate showed me the stats since that beer's been on in 1 week, and it would blow your fucking mind. Like,
Really?
Oh yeah. It's just having it on the menu. Just, yeah, people go, yeah, I want that. Like, it's just crazy. I mean, it's just a word, right? It's just a word.
It's just a word. Well, if you look at Odell, they have a beer called Drum Roll, and that came out, I would say, maybe 3 years ago, probably.
Has it been around?
And they called it an American Pale Ale.
Yeah.
Now it's called a Hazy Pale Ale. It's the same beer, but they just
Bell's is doing the same shit.
changed the name because it is something that people. It's always been hazy. Drum Roll's always been a hazy beer. They don't filter it, but if you don't put it on the label, then people might not understand that that's what it is.
That's crazy.
And where were we at that they said, Sam, that they did that specifically on a regular basis? So they'd roll out the same beer with two different names and two different descriptions and see which one sold better.
It might have been WeldWorks, honestly. Was it?
Yeah, no, it wasn't WeldWorks. The husband and wife who we love.
Oh, Odyssey.
Odyssey, thank you. I was going to say Trip, but that wasn't right.
Yeah.
Odyssey, yeah.
Chris, yeah.
Chris and
Dina.
Dina.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good job, Sam.
Biggest challenges that you see right now in the Colorado craft beer industry? What are you hearing?
Grocery store sales can be a good thing and a bad thing. I think that it ultimately may be a challenge for many of our brewers just because of having access to market. And some of our smaller brewers, for example, Odyssey, maybe having, I don't know if they're having a hard time, but some of the smaller brewers that package getting into grocery stores.
Is that something where a brewer could just go in and try to get it on the shelves of a Kroger?
So they do sets, so they don't do it the same way as a liquor store. A liquor store, yeah, you can go in, and if it's independently owned, which all in Colorado are, you have the ability to go in and try and sell your product to them. Grocery stores, they only change those sets every couple of months, so you have to go through their system.
So their buyer won't say, let's take a shot on this for a month? They just can't do that?
They aren't. Maybe each one does it individually, but from my understanding, they have to go through their whole system.
Wow.
And so that makes it a little bit harder on the seasonal side of things, too. If you come out with a beer that you weren't planning on having before and it's very popular, it may not be on the shelves. So it just creates a different dynamic there.
Are you surprised? Did you expect it? What's your reaction to that kind of grocery store sales?
Where did the guild stand on it prior to rolling it out?
And then what are you seeing after?
Yeah, so Senate Bill 196 is what allowed for full-strength beer in grocery stores. That happened in 2016. Our stance, the guild stance, was to support our retail liquor stores and their approach. They worked with the grocery stores to negotiate what came out of this.
Okay.
So it was amicable, for lack of a better word?
I would say that in legislation,
Nothing is amicable?
nothing's amicable.
How was that watching the sausage get made, by the way?
I would say that, the legislation is hard around craft
Anything.
beverage
Yeah.
in general. And I feel that in Colorado, it's been somewhat contentious over the last few years with the grocery stores and everything like that. Not everybody was happy, and obviously no solution would have made everybody happy. So we went with.
Were you
With
in
our
terms
liquor
of
stores.
sales numbers? Are you surprised by what you're seeing? Is it expected?
So the first half of the year, we saw a large bump in sales in grocery stores,
Craft sales.
which was great. And also somewhat not unexpected, just given the convenience factor and the fact that only beer is available and wine and spirits are not available in grocery stores.
Right.
It drives people to that convenience piece of it. We are bucking trends in that aspect across the country. So talking about challenges, a lot of beer drinkers are moving towards wine and spirits and away from beer. And so we in Colorado are the opposite of other places, but part of that's because this new avenue of retail sales came out, and so it essentially doubled the number of locations beer can be purchased to go. So off-prem, it doubled the number of locations.
Wow, I never thought about
overnight.
it that way.
So I guess if I just thought about this. If you're putting your beer in a King Soopers, is it better to be right next to the Coors Light? Like, do you want to be that next door over? Like, literally just kind of the flow of the aisle? Or does it matter?
Or do you want to be lost in the middle? Is that what you're
I
saying?
need to run that study. I want to know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that people would say different things. One, people are drawn to craft beer in Colorado. We have a higher percentage of consumers that drink craft beer than other states, and so it's almost better to be in the craft beer section because people are drawn to that section. And you're seeing in liquor stores, retail liquor stores right now, they are upping the amount of space that they have for craft beer because they are trying to become more of a destination instead of just the generic Coors, PBR, Bud Light location. And we have some of our brewery members that are selling beer that they may sell it in multiple locations, but they may only sell a specific beer to a liquor store. So you can't buy it at a grocery store so that people are driven to those liquor stores.
Well, it's like the new Molly's launch right down on Arapahoe. They've got 4 different beers, I think, out now that they've collaborated with different breweries on. Yeah, so I can totally understand that. Sorry, what were you going to say?
It's gone already. I don't know.
Okay, so that's one challenge. Do you have more challenges to the industry? And are you in a hurry, by the way? Because we can cut this off.
No,
Okay.
I have an hour.
Okay. Oh,
An hour still?
Well, I mean, I did pay for my meter for an
Okay.
hour.
Oh,
Right.
Hey, we
I
may
didn't
take up the
know.
full hour.
It was like 1 hour or 2 hours.
Okay.
So
No, this is awesome.
So wait, you have 2 hours.
I have 2 hours. Well,
Okay.
2 total.
Now you have 70 minutes.
Yeah.
I didn't write that many questions, Jay.
I have. I have.
Got plenty?
We
well,
can just drink beer after.
There we go.
if I can keep my train of thought, I'm recovering from the ho 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 slapdown yesterday.
Oh,
So
how was it?
Was
The-
that
the
a beer stat?
yeah,
How was it?
it was entertaining. I may have irritated some people. I was told that there were no rules and that cheating was highly encouraged. So I tried to help Comrade win by taking all of the beer stat voting and dumping it into the Comrade Stein. And my wife was pretty sure I was going to get kicked out at that point.
Yeah, I think that's breaking the rules, even though there's no rules.
No rules, and cheating is encouraged. So how do you break a rule?
So wait, I'm sorry, I missed. I meant they were spiking everything with Comrade.
No. I was telling Shawnee that I, towards the end, as they were getting ready to wrap up voting, I went up and took the beer stat stein full of voting tokens and dumped it into David's stein
you
for
should.
Comrade. Exactly.
That is the
and
best beer.
I'm pretty damn sure that Bierstadt still won. And David just looked at me like, I don't know what the hell happened. So
Did he look rested? He just had a
No.
kid.
No,
he's
he looked about the same.
Okay, he did. Poor
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have no question to ask? Can I ask a question?
actually, I do. moving
this
away.
is why it gets unfiltered.
Yeah,
So we
yeah.
got
Moving away
30
from
minutes in, that's when it hit.
the wheels come off pretty quickly. Moving away from liquor stores, grocery stores, etc. What does the current or the recent sale of certain big name breweries to large corporate breweries do to the image of craft brewing in Colorado? Or how does it affect someone like you and your job at the Guild? I mean, I'm just going to come right out and say it. New Belgium selling, and I'm not saying selling out because I honestly think this is a brewer buying a brewer, not a giant buying a craft brewery to eliminate the competition. But how does that sale specifically kind of affect or damage per se the image?
Affect or damage their image or our image?
Craft beer.
Craft beer.
I'm sure I can understand.
You know, I would say a couple things. One, we've seen multiple sales in Colorado already.
Some big ones recently.
Big ones. I mean, we saw Breckenridge in 2016.
Yeah, that
17,
sounds right.
End of 16, and then Avery. So those are two pretty large names. And obviously New Belgium is an even larger name. So we're no stranger in Colorado to those changes. And I would also say that there's a lot of reverence for New Belgium in craft beer for what they've done for craft beer in Colorado and paved the way for a lot of people. And, Kim Jordan was one of the founders of the Guild. We've appreciated so much of what she's done for the Guild. But at the same time, I mean, the Guild, are here to represent independent craft breweries, and with their sale, they no longer qualify to be a member of the Guild, similarly to Avery and Breckenridge. And so we're continuing to represent our members. She was one of the members that created our updated bylaws. And so
she knew exactly what she was getting into.
She knew exactly what she was getting into. Similarly did Avery. Everybody has to make a decision to benefit their business, or not benefit, but make sure that their business is successful.
Sure.
And it's a business decision at the end of the day. And I don't think that it diminishes our brand as the state of craft beer in Colorado. But we wish they were still members.
I was going to say, does losing New Belgium take a little bit of power or strength away from your voice as a guild?
I would say no. We have a great relationship with them, and we will continue to. They've always been great supporters of the Guild, and in general, our legislative efforts have always been in alignment with what they would say. And so I think that they'll continue to support us legislatively. They just won't have our voice representing them. They'll have to have their own voice.
So I guess knowing kind of along those same lines, the BA has taken, these are questions that are coming from fans, believe it or not. We have listeners.
7 or 8 of them.
Yeah. Knowing that the BA took on some pretty big sponsors for GABF, like Jameson, right? As the Colorado Brewers Guild, do you want to push back at any of that? Like, that has to upset you, I guess, is what I'm saying, or it's got to be frustrating a little bit from the Washingtons and the Colorados of the world to see something like that happen.
Everybody has to make a business decision. And I would say that the one thing, I'm not defending the BA, but I would say the one thing that Jameson did very well is that they were showcasing breweries there.
I would agree with that, yeah.
And that's very different than them just pouring Jameson shots.
True.
And so when we look at like our partners for events, at Collab Fest last year, Jameson was there. You guys probably wouldn't even have noticed it because they looked exactly the same, and they had beer with a couple breweries, and they were showcasing the beer. Mm-hmm. And so I would say the BA is strategic in that sense of thinking about how to showcase their members and the beer specifically. there's money behind sponsorship, and sometimes it's hard to deny that.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. So I guess knowing that Colorado's craft spirits is on the industry is on the rise, is that a strategic kind of vision for you, or a plan that you want to get after to kind of continue these collaborations, say between a Breckenridge or a Bear Creek Distillery, or High West?
I don't know what that is. Leopold?
Laws, yeah.
Yeah, well, our former marketing director is now the marketing director at Laws.
Okay.
So
Nice.
Steve is a good friend of mine as well. But, it's not a strategic plan of ours to tap into that. But I would say on the legislative side of things and advocacy side of things, we always try to have partnerships wherever we can. So if we can build something collectively with our spirits or our wineries, we are going to do that.
That makes sense.
And that's regardless of, if we're losing market share to them or not. We want to make sure that we're encouraging collaboration and moving forward constructively.
It's the craft thing, right? I mean, the whole industry is so behind each other.
Yeah, we call ourselves the craft family.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
You're good?
For the moment, yeah.
What is it about Colorado, the fact that you grew up here, the fact that you understand a mountain town, that makes it so primed for craft beer, right? Obviously it's spreading across the country now in all directions, but it really kind of started here and maybe other pockets in the West. But what is it about Colorado that you're seeing?
Oh, that's a good question.
Nobody's ever said that.
Yeah.
Ever.
Well, first of all, we need to give credit where credit is due. Who gave you that question?
This isn't from Dave. No.
Okay.
No, this is from me.
I would say that people ask it in a different way. They say, what does it mean to be the state of craft beer, instead of how you phrased it. And I think there's multiple pieces to it. One, the entrepreneurial spirit of Colorado, and the fact that we have Boulder Beer, which has been around for 40 years. One of the oldest craft breweries in the country, started here with Charlie Papazian, and he started the Brewers Association and GABF and everything like that. I mean, there was a little piece of history that was created in Colorado that
You're in the
spurred
fucking
craft
Smithsonian
beer.
now.
Yeah.
I went out and saw it. It's so
You
crazy.
saw it.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Sweet.
I'll show you a picture of all
Have
done.
you been to the Beer Here, Beer Now?
We didn't go. Is it still going on? I still see signs for it.
I think it's
yeah.
still going on. You guys should check it out.
Yeah, we didn't. We couldn't get a foot in the door with the marketing people. We actually want to do an interview.
We should just go anyway.
Yeah, we should.
You guys should check
with
it
all
out.
our
I'm
our
sure
free
it's
time.
not as big as the Smithsonian, but it has great history in there.
Okay.
And then going back to that, I would say like Coors is also a big part of that, and Tivoli, in terms of beer, was central to a lot of the mining and everything that was happening in Colorado. And then obviously, Prohibition came about. All that went away. Coors still existed through that, and then came back after Prohibition.
Well,
ended.
it's so much. I don't mean to cut you off, but I mean, knowing our neighbors and good friends are German residents, right there. Beer is such a part of the mining industry in Germany. It makes total sense that it would be the same thing here, right? Like as it's just a part of that culture.
Yep,
100%.
definitely, and I think that is a big part of it. But then also, I would say, Colorado used to be a pretty red state. Now we're considered a purple state. But my dad always jokes about, not jokes, but he says the only reason that marijuana was legalized here in the first place and before other states was that because we have a pretty liberal contingent and we have a pretty right-wing contingent that doesn't want the government into our business.
Okay.
And somehow they agree on something.
Yeah.
And I would say that that's similar to craft brewing laws or brewing laws in general, is that we have some of the most favorable brewing laws in the United States, and it's allowed craft beer to flourish. And the Guild is here to make sure that those keep being favorable.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
We have some of the lowest excise taxes in the country. We have some of the most favorable brewing laws.
I guess
Red, blue, it doesn't matter over a beer.
that's
Exactly.
Is
and
what I
that's-
heard. Or a joint, but that may not be quite the same thing.
But it's true. Beer, I mean, that's something that we have some going for us at the state capitol, is that we are able to cross party lines, and it is a very bipartisan issue.
Something you brought up there was Coors, and I think this is what Charlie Berger kind of pointed out to us too when we were at Denver Beer Co. is that, Charlie was in St. Louis when AB got bought out, right? And that just allowed the craft beer scene to take over. Because AB, there's a little bit more
Evil Empire
feel to AB than Coors. And I guess our read from a lot of brewers and folks like you is that Coors is relatively supportive of craft beer in this state. I mean, it's not.
I would say
AB
extremely.
wants to, eat everything up. Coors is kind of like perhaps it's more. No, I wouldn't say a partnership. But what's your read on that? I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up. It depends on who you talk to, but I would say that a lot of brewers still drink Coors Banquet.
Yeah.
And they're not drinking Budweiser.
I've seen a lot drinking. What's the gold? The
Extra Gold.
Extra gold.
I have to keep re-educating you on the Coors
But
Extra
apparently
Gold.
that's a thing.
It
You're like,
is.
yeah,
If
this
you
is-
go to the High Dive, people drink Extra Gold there.
It's like canned water. I mean, it's good beer, but you can drink enough of them.
Yeah.
It's like hydrating as a brewer.
I would also say that there's a decent amount of people that came from Coors that work in craft beer.
Yeah.
And so there's some respect there in the sense of respecting your elders and where you came from. And so people in the industry have a little bit more, give them a little more leeway. But I would also say, they haven't bought a brewery in Colorado.
That's a good point.
And
that's a really good point.
They don't feel the same pressures that they are feeling from AB. And in terms of the craft space, there's a little bit less of Coors buying breweries and then pushing that out as craft. You do see it, but it's just not as prevalent as what we're seeing from AB.
And I would go so far as to say almost manipulative from the AB standpoint, that they really, really, truly try to hide the fact that it's an AB-owned establishment and would rather sell it or lead you to believe that you're buying something that is truly craft when it's not.
The term that Eric Wallace, who's from Left Hand and the board chair of the BA, would say is they're crafty, but not craft.
Wow.
That's true.
It's pretty sharp. I like that.
They're easy to hate.
Slimy. I think they're
makes
slimy,
sense.
frankly.
Yeah.
That's my version of it. I want to go another direction for a minute because I'm going to forget this question, and it is relevant. We talked about New Belgium selling. One of the original guild members, founders, one of the original brewers in Colorado to make a name for micro and craft, and they went big. You also just mentioned Boulder Beer Company, and they basically did the complete opposite of what we're seeing from a lot of breweries recently, where they said, no, we are going to actually scale back. We're going to focus on our own handles, our own tap room. We're only going to make beer for ourselves and for our customers that come into the bar. Is that how do you see that fitting into the future of brewing and craft breweries? I mean, Sam and I talk a lot about people get into brewing for one of really just three reasons. It seems like they want to make a ton of money and they want to start a brewery that sells for $1 billion. They want to be awesome at their craft and be a locally owned establishment that just makes people happy, or they're brewers with a passion for it and they work in the industry just because they just want to be journeyman beer makers. But when all the news lately is either people shutting down completely or selling out to bigger companies, what does Boulder Beer, what does their statement mean to you? What do you read into that?
That's a big question, but I would say that as we see craft beer maturing, people are going to have to make different decisions for what's best for their company. And Boulder Beer isn't the first Boulder brewery to do this. Twisted Pine did this back in 2017, I believe.
Okay.
They got out of distribution and they only have their tap room.
Okay.
So it's not a new move in
Okay.
Colorado, but it was a big deal considering how established Boulder Beer is and how long they've been around. I would also say, you look at the news that came out even more recently
Right.
with their move to Sleeping Giant, and it shows that there's still an appetite out there for Boulder beer and their distribution, and just thinking about it in a different way. But, the BA always talks about, not always, but recently talks about how we're still seeing growth in craft beer and breweries, but those breweries are the ones that are the taproom model. And the ones that are selling beer over the bar are growing the fastest. Granted, they're the smallest. So percentage growth, you have to keep that in mind. As an economist's mind, I think.
Well, no, in
about
the
that
words
a lot.
of every fucking brewery owner, we're talking dollars versus cents.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so that's where people are seeing growth. But, these things are, the New Belgium sale and the Boulder beer changes are prevalent, and they are the biggest news story. But I would also say that last year we saw the most number of breweries open in Colorado since we've tracked. So if you keep that in mind, it's also that craft beer is growing exponentially in terms of breweries, but maybe not in terms of barrelage. And we have to just keep that in mind, is that even though we're seeing closures and changes, we still see breweries opening up. And the BA did a really awesome study where they showed where breweries are opening up the most. And the most breweries that are opening up in places that had the most breweries already. So if you look at a map of the United States, that's what you're seeing, which I find fascinating,
So
but
the
it
color
makes
is
sense.
getting more concentrated. If you're dotting the areas or the cities or the towns or even the blocks the breweries are on, it's getting more tight. It's becoming
but
more.
but it makes sense in terms of what I said earlier, in the sense that Colorado has some of the most favorable brewing laws in the states. So why not open up a brewery in Colorado where it's going to be easier? You're going to have people that already understand craft beer and people that want to support you. If you're opening up a brewery in Georgia, it's going to be a lot harder. They just passed the ability to have a tap room
Wow.
last
They're
year.
Georgia.
little behind the times down there.
Well, think
Yeah.
about this too, right? I mean, if you're in Iowa, if you're in Iowa, I grew up there. So I'm thinking, I know that my local, outside of topping Goliath, Iowa's doing better now, so never mind. But let's say I was in North Dakota, I can get better beer off the shelf. It's going to taste better from Colorado than I can go across the street and go to that local brewery. So if you have a taste for craft beer, it would make sense that your taste is going to be so strong that you're just not going to quite support that mediocre beer in your local area if the onus is, I guess, on that beer maker in that area. But getting access to those kind of recipes and those kinds of sources, it's going to be really hard. And so I guess, to me, here, there's enough of a craft beer appetite to make a brewery work because there are so many craft beer drinkers that have that expectation. I don't know if it was a good statement, but I mean, in my head, it sounded better.
I bet it did.
Yeah.
I bet it did.
Thanks, Jay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
So we're winding down 2019.
I got to ask the other question.
What's the other question? Oh.
Can you speak to diversity in brewing?
Diversity in brewing.
Because I'm sure that you, Amanda and Nicole did not. We asked this question on 13 the other night, and I said, off the record, because I know you don't want to answer this, can you just tell us? They did.
So
And worse than that, we asked it on the air with,
Brittany Portman at Fiction.
and we asked it
where?
at Beer,
Brittany Portman,
and we asked it at Bierstadt.
In Bierstadt, yeah.
And we have a tendency to step on ourselves here. So
It's an important question to ask,
it's a super important question to ask. So here's what I would say. One, it depends on what you say diversity, how you define diversity.
Sure.
I'm a female,
Yeah.
and I'm the executive director of the Colorado
shit.
Brewers Guild.
Yeah.
People think that beer is all white bearded dudes in flannels. You guys,
This is not flannel.
yeah,
Come
mine's not
on.
flannel either.
Okay.
It's
Shawnee,
just
this
plaid.
is just plaid.
This is
Okay,
this is business plaid.
He's
I
wearing
had
a
casual
fucking
plaid
vest.
yesterday, and I trimmed the beard specifically to get away from the look.
wait.
Yeah,
Before
go,
I answer the
please.
question, I'm
Yes.
gonna order a beer.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Oh.
I don't have to drive. I took the train.
I
yes.
have to drive.
Let me see here. Oh, you have Blind Pig on? Do you have Blind Pig on? I'll take that, please. Thank you. Sorry. Executive Director of the Colorado Brewers Guild.
Please stand by.
California beer.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm just looking at the menu.
So, it's diversity is a big issue, and I think the BA has been working on this in terms of creating a position. So they have a diversity ambassador, Dr. J. She came out to Colorado a few times. She's been awesome in just creating that conversation. So there's that. I would also say that I went to the grand opening of Raíces on Saturday. Have you guys been there yet?
No, we've heard a lot of good
Yes,
stuff.
yes, we have, yeah.
Yeah.
No, exactly.
But we haven't been yet.
No,
yeah.
Okay, so I went on
I've been
Saturday,
tracking it.
Yeah.
and I was telling Jose and Tamil and Martine, who are the owners down there. Martine's the head brewer, and there are few times that I've been blown away in craft beer recently, because I feel like you go to breweries, you see a lot, you talk to a lot of people, and going to that event was probably the most diverse I've ever seen a craft brewery. And it was awesome what they're doing there. And what they're trying to do is create a space for people, multicultural space, where people can gather and have beer, but it isn't about that white bearded conversation. No offense to you guys, but
Not at all.
I think that what they're doing there is creating a cultural gathering place, and that people can come there and drink beer, but they do other things.
Yeah.
And so they had,
Like what?
so Tamil was like showing everybody how to salsa dance. They had live music, and
That's
it
cool.
was, not just a punk rock band or bluegrass. And the people that were there were really engaged and excited to be there, and it felt very different. And they're located in Sun Valley. So before I worked at the Guild, I worked for Denver Urban Gardens. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but it's a community garden organization. And I worked in Sun Valley for 7 years. And if you don't know, it's the most diverse neighborhood in the entire state, because they have so many different refugees living in that community. I think it's like 90% or 95% of the housing is public housing or subsidized housing. And they're trying to engage that community of diversity and bring people in and say that like beer shouldn't be exclusive, it should be inclusive, and that you can drink beer and do all these other things and get together with your community.
So
I love
Raíces
that.
has been on our radar, my radar at least, for I would say close to 2 years at this point.
Is that Justin? Justin's their accountant? Winselman? He is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
Winselman's.
Justin knows him. I don't know if he's the CPA officially, but we've gotten word on them, through a couple of different channels.
Which one's that? Oh, is that my? Okay, thank you.
So
So actually, before I forget now, because we got to cut this off eventually, just drink beer and shoot the shit off the record. How important then, to toot my own horn here, is a metro to the future of brewing in Colorado? Because the campus attracts. We're an HSI institution, right? Hispanic serving institution. We're the most diverse campus in all of Colorado. I mean, we were at a Chain Reaction, right? Their assistant brewer, she went through the program.
yeah, that's right.
But even now, you go and you talk to Ethan.
Skylar, I think her name is.
Exactly.
Yep, Skylar.
You go downstairs and you see Ethan's students and Katie's students, and it's all colors and all races and in all genders. And I mean, this place has got to be great for that, right?
Yeah. I mean, so one of the things that we're lucky at the Guild to have is relationships with MSU, Metro State, and CSU and their brewing program, and being able to support those programs and really encourage more people to get into the education side of things and then learn to be part of the craft brewing industry. But I think that Metro is a great resource for that, and encouraging people to come to Tivoli and try the beers and get engaged and make it not an exclusive intimidating industry.
And I think to be honest, we're close to this place. We're close to Nate and to Steph and to Ken, and I think this is not coming from any kind of plug, but every assistant brewer that I talk to says that Nate and Charlie are just amazing to work under. So why wouldn't you just do your internship hours here and your service hours there? But I guess at Colorado Springs, where are they doing their kind of brewery internships? The students, do you know?
MSU.
Are they really?
I don't know.
No, CSU. Like, what are their partnerships up there?
Oh,
CSU?
you're talking. That's not
CSU,
the Springs.
So that's up
Fort
in Fort
Collins.
Collins.
Sorry.
Yep.
He's not a local.
You know what I mean? Sorry. You're right. I'm not a
I
local.
have to. I take a lot
I've
of
been here for
heat.
10 years.
I take a lot of heat
Sorry.
for him not knowing shit about the city.
Fort Collins. I got to write that down to cut it out so I don't sound so stupid.
So Fort Collins. So where do they do their internships?
Yeah.
Similarly, so they get internships with breweries up there in Fort Collins.
Not a brewery on campus though.
They do have
Oh,
a
do they have
brewery
a brewery?
on campus now. It's called the Ramskeller.
Well, that used to be a bar when I went to CSU.
It still is a bar, but they have a little brewery there.
Oh, nice.
So they make beer there as well.
Road trip.
You guys should go check it out.
We've got to go to Equinox.
Yeah?
Our buddy Dan's best friend is the owner and head brewer.
Colin?
Colin, yeah.
Cool. Yeah. You guys got to go up there. It's not too far from at CSU, actually.
Okay, it's right there.
So there's a lot of great breweries up in Fort Collins. You guys got to make like a weekend of it.
Yeah,
or
we're
something.
gonna have to find a driver.
All right, so we can crush some beers here and shoot the shit off the record. Is there anything that we should know as beer consumers that the Guild's putting on the next month or two that we can get tickets for?
We will be putting on Collaboration Fest in the springtime. We will be announcing the date and venue shortly, so keep an eye out for that. But that's our annual festival where brewers can get together and collaborate with another brewer and make a unique beer. It's one of the most unique beer festivals out there, and it was the first one in the country to be able to do something like that. So
is there a newsletter that folks can sign up for, or socials?
Yeah, so if you
like
guys
that?
go to coloradobeer.org, at the bottom of our page, you can sign up for our weekly email that goes out that lists all of the events that our members post on our website.
Okay.
And then you can also follow us on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And so we also feature a lot of the events that our members are having on our Facebook page.
Perfect. Shawnee, thank you so much. One last
This
cheers.
was awesome. Thank you.
That was. You know, it's a good interview when you roll into an hour.
Yeah.
It tends to go well. Thank you, Shawnee. All right, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the episode, and we'll be back next week with everyone.
Cheers.